Welcome to the Sports Exchange. The conversation we'll have on this program explores the business of sport. So a number of topics will be discussed. We'll talk about sports in and out of the Caribbean. We'll look at the global picture, but we're focusing on the Caribbean and how the business of sport can impact our athletes and those that work with them. This side of the Caribbean has largely been focused on athletic performances. So we talk about cricket players, we talk about footballers, and of course our track and field athletes. And netball would not forgive me if I left them out. We're going to be looking at venues for this episode. But before we get to our very special guest, we're going to explore some of the top stadiums across the world. And we have 6 of the top ones. And I'll start at number 6. The Wembley Stadium in London is a very expensive undertaking and was formed when it took an investment of £789 million in 2007. Then you have the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, USA, that was opened in 1922. $4 million in 2019 was invested. Then there's the FNB in South Africa, 1989, 440 million. And I'm throwing out figures there. Camp Nou in Barcelona, Spain, where almost every major sporting event has been held in that stadium, was all the way back in 1957, and there was an investment of 1.73 billion euros. Then the Melbourne Cricket Ground, founded in 1853, that saw an investment of over 460 million up to 2006. That sees over 100,000 spectators. And then the biggest stadiums of them all is the Rungredo in North Korea, which is legally supposed to seat 114,000. They have not told us what that investment was. That is unknown. But to take you back to the Caribbean, we have a very special guest with us. He's Honorable Michael Fennell, the chairman of the Independence Park Limited, Jamaica. Welcome to the program, Mike.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, chairman of IPL Jamaica, but let us just look back at some of the things you have done. You have been chairman for the Commonwealth Games Federation and a number of other international things. Give us a little quick summary of some of the sports you've worked with.
Well, I've worked with all sports. More currently and in keeping with the topic, I'm president of the Technical Commission of Pan Am Sports. Mm-hmm. That's the body responsible for the Pan American Games and the lead Olympic body in the Americas. Mm-hmm. And right now I have been working with them as a Technical Commission president and also as a member of their executive board for the Pan American Games, which will be celebrated in Santiago, Chile in November of this year. And that involves looking at all the venues that will be required for 39 different sports.
Oh, 39. Yeah. Any new additions to the Pan Am Games for the next?
Yes, you've had breakdancing, which is going to be in Paris 2024. Mm-hmm. The Pan Am Games is a year before the Olympic Games, and therefore it mirrors the program of the Olympic Games. Okay. And recently, starting with Tokyo, the IOC have included a number of sports on a one-off basis, and breakdancing is one for 2024. Also, sport climbing. Those are sports that we really don't know much about, but they're very much on the worldwide scene. And just in answer to your question, those are 2 of the new sports that will be there.
Okay, so we're certainly exploring and expanding the number of sporting disciplines. And to take us to the conversation we'd like to have, we're going to be talking about venues. How important is a venue to the management and efficient running of sport generally?
Well, just let me say, the venues is perhaps the centerpiece of the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And I would include in that the venue for the housing of the athletes, which is called a village. Mm-hmm. That in itself is a venue. Right. But the venues for the sports have to meet all sorts of standards, because as you would know, and I think the people who are watching this would know, that the television rights plays a very important part in the financing of all of these things. Mm-hmm. And the television rights demand that your venues be up to scratch. the international federations for each sport, which represents the ruling body for every sport, dictates what are the rules, the field of play dimensions, the field of play conditions, etc., have to satisfy before they can ratify it as an international event. So those are standards.
So is it that some of our developing countries will find it difficult to host the major events like the Olympics, the Pan Am Games in some instances, and even the Commonwealth Games?
Very much so. And I know you're going to link it with the National Stadium, and we can discuss that further, because there are several things that we do not satisfy those requirements right now. But one thing I must mention, that apart from satisfying the international rules and the television stations, perhaps the biggest thing you have to satisfy are your local spectators. Because local spectators, when I say local, those who are going to go to the event,
Right.
are now requiring more levels of comfort. Why do you take them away from the television set in their drawing rooms or their homes or offices or whatever? Where can they go? Can they take their children? Can they have a nice time? Far beyond the requirements of just a sport alone. And I think stadia should never forget that if you do not cater to the spectator conveniences and comfort, you're going to lose them.
So are you suggesting that maybe one day in the Caribbean we could actually have cushion seats in our stadium?
I won't go that far. I won't go that far. Because, but certainly we have to look at what it must be comfortable. And the convenience things that you have with them. Nowadays people are taking their children, and the children go off and play something in some tech park or something like that. These are all parts of people having an enjoyable time because of the sport event that's taking place.
Right, so the modernization of a stadium is almost like a home away from home situation.
Yeah.
All right, so, Mr. Fennell, you have been around the world to a number of stadiums. What are some of the top stadiums you would have visited that has probably the most modern facilities you could think of?
Well, there are many of them, Carole. Not recently, but you mentioned in your opening remarks about the Melbourne cricket ground.
Right.
I was then head of the Commonwealth Games Federation. I had to deal with that because those games were held in Melbourne in 2006. And I remember the modernization of that stadium, which is basically a cricket ground, a historical cricket ground, into a stadium that could hold other sports as well. And they hosted the Commonwealth Games at the time very successfully. And since then, they've been doing other sports, because Melbourne Cricket Ground, as I say, primarily a cricket facility, but they have a thing in Australia called Australian rules football, which is a huge sport in Australia. A lot of spectators, and certainly you have to provide for that as well. And I saw that. Then you had the situation with last year, the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, where they took an old stadium and modernized it and had wonderful facilities. Some of the facilities were on a temporary basis.
Right.
Because you don't need all of those things on an ongoing basis. So some were just for the event. So you had that. I have seen stadia in Mexico. I've seen in Lima, Peru, where they built some new stadia for the Pan American Games, which were held in 2017. And 2019. And interesting in that was a swimming pool complex, not just track and field. When you talk about stadium in Jamaica, you think about the football and track and field. But the velodrome for cycling and the swimming pool were models for other places. I experienced a lot of people coming here to look at that to help them with their designs back home in various parts of the world. So that's the sort of thing that takes place.
Well, the truth is, in the out of season, although sports is now being played throughout the entire year, a lot of those facilities they facilitate tours because of the whole technology that's associated with it.
Yeah.
You mentioned an important point about TV rights and the venues. Let's dig a little bit into that. TV rights actually they pay the athletes and pay most of the bills, but they also demand a lot of the venues. How really important is that for venues in and around the world and the Caribbean to get those things right?
extremely important. You not only have to have the field of play ready, you have to have the facilities for the TV crews. I think you would know, and many people would know, that when you have a big event anywhere, the standard thing used to be that they bring an OB van. That's outside broadcasting van with all the studios and things in it. And many places you'll see temporary wires, generators and so on. The modern stadium today is that they would bring that van and plug it in somewhere. They don't have to provide. There's a provision and space for that. So the TVs can come in. They don't have to have crew running wires all over the place and disturbing the safety and security and so on. Your modern stadium would have something that you come and plug it in. You also have fixed camera spots. I don't think many people know that for a big event at a reasonable sized stadium, not a huge stadium, has to have fixed about 25 or 27 camera spots. Right? That's in addition to the roving camera spots. You also have the overhead things where facilities for cameras that can go around. People are now using drones for some,
right.
but certainly have fixed things. And those people who watch football and athletics will know that on the ground you have these cameras that move up and down. It started with just the 100 meters in athletics. Now they will have those cameras right around the track that are moving.
Right.
So they are enhancing their spectators' experience.
Absolutely.
The television view. So even if you're not a track fan or a football fan or a cricket fan, you can get an enjoyable afternoon watching the game, even if the game was not your primary focus.
And of course, I see there's a little bit of different focus now on field events. You know, probably used to get a little excerpt of a discus throw or shot put or javelin. Now you're getting almost frame by frame in those events.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, part of this whole transformation in what the TV stations are doing is what has been brought in. You know, there's a specialty service that comes in, which is called the sports management, the event itself, where these people spend a lot of time. There are a lot of specialists, very costly, and these people look at, again, what can be done to make it more attractive. In other words, the background stories, the clips, the video clips, and so on. And where a country like Jamaica comes in, is that they show clips that enhance the tourism interest.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Jamaica hosted the NCAA basketball weekend in November. They have done it for a number of years. And a lot of the backstories that CBS Sports does actually carry is touring around in the resort towns, essentially, and getting into the nooks and crannies to show what they call B-roll.
Absolutely.
During the breaks.
You know, anecdotally, I could go back. I don't know if I have time for it. But I was involved with the World Boxing Heavyweight title fight here in 1973, the Sunshine Showdown.
That's way before some of you watching were born.
The Sunshine Showdown. This was held in February. It was winter in North America. And I remember clearly in negotiating, they said, look, we want it in the winter. We want a lot of background clips with your sun, sea and sand. Because that is what will be attractive to them, because they're holed up in their at that time it was not it was closed circuit television going into theaters, etc.
Right.
Not on your TV screen. But that's what they wanted, video clips. Now that was connecting the business community with the event itself. And that's how it's done all over the world.
We're here to open a savings account for my son John. I really want him to start saving and managing his own money.
And I need for Safe to visit my father in New York.
Okay, based on what you said and our risk assessment, he will qualify for simplified customer due diligence requirements. I'll need your ID, proof of income, TRN, and John's ID as well.
Okay, here you go.
Opening an account is easier than you think using Simplified Customer Due Diligence Requirements, also called CDD.
Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances Limited has been a part of Jamaica's manufacturing landscape for over 20 years. By crafting unique flavors and fragrances, we have become a part of your favorite household and food items, such as beverages, ice cream, household cleaners, and much more. Known throughout the Caribbean for the highest quality, we continue to innovate with strong leadership, a dedicated team with integrity. We go the extra mile for our customers. Create the next taste sensation. Contact us at 876-923-5111 or visit our website, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn pages.
My name is Therese Kettle, Vice President Investment Banking at Burrito Investments Limited. Now, what do I do at Burrito Investments Limited? I'm the Vice President in charge of investment banking, so pretty much it starts off with me making sure that my team is right, providing my team with the support so that they can get their job done. In investment banking, what we're doing, we're always looking for opportunities to help our clients to grow. We try to make sure that we understand our client's business. We listen to the client, we listen to what the client is saying and what the client is not saying. At Burrito, we want to revolutionize your business. Let's talk.
If you're just joining us, we're listening to CBX Sports Exchange, and we're having as our very special guest the Honorable Michael Fennell, who is chairman of the Independence Park Limited in Jamaica. Now we're going to take him home a little bit to the Caribbean, and where primarily we have a lot of cricket grounds. In 2007 for the Cricket World Cup, we upgraded, renovated up to 10 stadiums in the region, of course, of which, and forgive me, Queen's Park Oval, Kensington Oval, Sabina Park, and of course we changed from Border to Providence in Guyana.
And Grenada and Antigua and so all of that.
And so on. So the cricket grounds primarily in the Caribbean have been used heavily. How feasible do you think those are going forward from 2023?
I think one of the lessons learned out of the World Cup cricket in 2007 is that we didn't spend enough time looking at the legacy value of those venues. And some of those venues were overbuilt in 2007 because they're not needed on an ongoing basis. And you'll find that today more people are spending more attention to that aspect of the stadium you present. In Birmingham, let me use that as an example. The Alexander Stadium has fixed seating of 16 or 18,000 people. But I had a stadium of 30,000 people for the Commonwealth Games. And it went back to 16,000 after the games. It was temporary seating built in because they do not need 30,000 365 days of the year.
Absolutely.
They spent more time in building other conveniences, the food courts and all that sort of thing that people had there, which again, people could go there, spend the whole day, they have their meals, etc., and were very, very comfortable.
Right. So they're turning them essentially into entertainment venues.
If I could take something that perhaps people don't like to talk about, is the restrooms. And, you know, in working on the refurbishment of the National Stadium here, we ran into a most interesting and fascinating situation. When the stadium was built in Jamaica, the majority by far of the spectators were male.
Were men, right?
As a result, the stadium was built with not sufficient restrooms for the females.
For females, right.
Now we have almost a 50-50 thing with people who come to the stadium. And we find that we have to redesign the restroom facilities going into the future.
Well, I am a New York Yankees fan, and the new Yankee Stadium, their bathrooms are like to die for. You almost want to spend more time in the bathrooms. The new Wembley Stadium actually is very good. It is one of the things that they continue to focus on. And those are the things as we go into the new type of sports fan that we have to, because people, you know, you have TV cameras or screens everywhere because they don't want you to miss the action. How important is that as we discuss now the renovation of the National Stadium in Kingston, which has been around for over 60 years?
Yes, it was opened in 1962. So here it is, in the celebration of our 60th anniversary. Yeah, very, very important. Again, as you know, with TV cameras, people think of using TV cameras for security purposes, which is the primary purpose of that. But there are also things that if you're going out to the food court, you can go to the food court, wait in line, get your food, etc., and you're still watching the game.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Because the new sports fan wants.
the spectator experience are coming there, they're not missing a beat. And those are things that we have to join that line and get to the front of the line in providing those services.
The bill is a hefty, almost 76 million or almost 80 million US dollars to fix the stadium. Talk me through some of the renovation
Wow.
that is likely to happen.
Well, not likely. It has to happen. Okay?
I'm happy to hear that. So you heard it here
Has
first.
to happen. First of all, it's an old stadium, and let me just answer a question that everybody will ask. Why don't we scrap the stadium and build a new one? That's what they would do in the USA. We do not have that luxury. Let's accept that.
Okay.
Also, there are historic reasons for Jamaica, unlike other countries, where the stadium is where we became independent. That's where the Jamaican flag was raised.
All right.
That's indicative of that. And an interesting thing, a little anecdote. When I was dealing with this main stadium in Santiago, they have a similar problem with their main stadium, which is 80 years old. And they want to retain it because that's where they had the strikes, the revolutionary thing, where they had those problems years ago. And
So
they want to retain it as a
On
part
sacred ground.
a part of their history. But to come back to what we're doing, we have to do things like the seating. As you know, all sports today demand that there be individual seats. And we do not have individual seats in the bleachers. And this has to be individual seats right around. We have to increase the seating capacity marginally.
Right now
Now-
it stands at what, 35?
31, 32. And we want to get close to 40.
Okay.
Okay. Number 3, we need to ensure that we can separate spectators totally from your performers, your athletes. There's no sport that allows that commingling of spectators and athletes.
Was that the first idea about bleachers though? Bleachers I thought was some kind of commingling.
It's all over because your main dressing rooms come out right by the grandstand and people are all around. If you go over to the other side, the marathon tunnel, you're almost
Touching.
free to commingle. So we need to ensure that. We need to have better media facilities and television facilities.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. And we need to do that, not just with the seating and comforts, but to provide for the technology that's used in media doing the work. Number 3, or number 4, number 5, I don't know how far I've gone yet, but the lighting, the field of play lighting and other lighting factors that need to be paid attention. Televisions station are demanding 16 to 20 lumens depending on the sport. If it's cricket, you have to go up to 25. Okay? Because like baseball, cricket is like baseball, you need that type of lighting. We're nowhere near that. We have just a passable limit, and if one bulb's go, you're in trouble.
Are we considering solar energy?
Solar is a part of everything we're considering, but solar cannot replace some of these lighting factors for the field of play.
And then we spoke about the bathroom facility. Well, the accessories. Let's call them the accessories. What are some of the things that are being considered?
Oh, many things. I don't have a shopping list here this morning, but we are thinking of the spectator facilities, spectator comfort, the media, the recreational rooms, if you want to call it, the VIP rooms and so on. We have nothing. And we also need rooms for the management of the event. Every event planner and organizer needs proper rooms for the managing of their thing. Then what will not be seen is we need we have it now, a central security room with television monitoring all around the stadium, inside and outside. car parks and everything. These are just some of the things that we have to do to really modernize it.
And of course, skyboxes for the
Yes,
VIP
will be there
clientele,
too.
who I'm sure investors can participate. Now, after 60 years, Jamaica hosted the CAC Games,
Central American Caribbean Games in
Right.
62,
62, Commonwealth Games,
in 66,
right? Then we have hosted a whole
World Netball,
World Netball in 71
74, 76, 74,
and
78.
2003.
Yeah. Then
Norman Manley Games. We have done the World Junior Championships in track and field,
World Heavyweight Title Fight.
right?
And there was a time, and not many people remember this, we had big tennis in the National Arena. They put on and I think this was in the days of Richard Russell and so on. We had a tennis court put there with the turf in there.
As in lawn tennis.
Lawn tennis, yeah.
Okay, very interesting. Of
Not
course,
big.
table tennis. Yes, we can't forget that.
Yeah.
So, what does that mean to the economy in terms of the building or rebuilding, renovating the stadium, and of course, how will it impact us in Jamaica or the rest of the region as a sport destination? Talk a little bit about the employment around the renovating of the stadium.
Critical. Well, of course, there's the employment involved in the mechanics of the renovation, the builders, the contractors, and so on. That by itself is a big deal. On an ongoing basis, you need to employ people who are properly trained and retrained into operating the various new technology, gadgets, and so on that you use in running a stadium, whether it's a card reader for your entry or whether for security and things like that. You have to have modernized entry units. You have to ensure that entry facility is easy going in and easy going out. This also has to be accompanied by the external things too, because no point in having an oasis in the stadium and you can't get from where you are in and get back
And
out.
get back out. Oh yes, entry and exit is going to be
Very,
very
very
important, right?
Safety, security, comfort.
Safety, security, and comfort, right? SSC.
We have the situation where, from a business point of view, the more events you have, is the more it develops business opportunities, not just for vendors selling food and so on, but people come and spend money on other things. And you look around the world. This is not rocket science. This is nothing new, I'm telling you. This is what has happened in other parts of the world. You create more business opportunities by the traffic and events. And let me quickly say, whilst we talk about hosting international events, it's also hosting local events as well. You can have an increase in your local events. And certainly this is something that we're trying to do so that Jamaica can lift its facilities to the level of our performers. Our athletes are performing way above that. We now need to lift what we do to their standard.
Oh, boy, I could ask you so many questions, but to talk about it, will there be things considered for the acoustics of the venue? Currently, the National Stadium, when there is a concert or there's a music event, there has to be some inclusion of extra equipment to boost the sound. Is there any opportunity for that in the new plan?
Yes and no. We know that's going to happen. We provide the facilities, but no stadium in the world can operate for these unique events with a specialist overlay of the facilities that need for that. When you're having concerts and so on, you have to bring in and do your overlay. That's a promoter has to do that. A stadium would have no further use other than for that specific event.
Right.
And we have to understand that the principle of having an overlay is not just for small countries like us, even the large countries. Having an overlay means, that you bring in on a temporary basis those things that are essential for that particular event. So this could be from advertising boards, specific advertising boards, to specific sound equipment, electronics, and so on. What we have to do is ensure that it has connectivity, and they can come in and do it, because we can't be a specialist in that. They're specialist people for that.
All right. Of course, I couldn't have you on the program without talking a little bit about your own involvement in sports. Tell us some of the things you did.
Yeah.
You know I was gonna get you for that, right?
That was
Mr.
naughty.
Fennell.
That is naughty.
Oh no, Mr. Fennell has done everything in sports. He has competed, he has administered, he has managed, he's a global figure, but he started where most of us as athletes started. What were some of the sports you participated
Well,
in?
mainly swimming and water polo. Water polo, I represented Jamaica and the West Indies. I played a lot of club cricket. I did motorsports. I did squash and a whole lot of it, but
Right.
recreationally. I think, Carole, one of the things that we reflect on the 60 years was my involvement in how we had a national stadium.
Right.
Because we went to the Central American and Caribbean Games in Venezuela. Should have been in 58, but they had a revolution there. So we didn't go there till early 59, when Jamaica was asked to host the 62 games.
Right.
We're then a colony, and Benny Machado was the chef de mission. He came back, took it to the Olympic Committee, who went to Premier Norman Manley, and he consulted with Bustamante, who was leader of the opposition at the time. And in no time at all, they gave us about 4 or 5 months to give an answer. And the answer was given, yes, we want to do this. And then, driven by Norman Manley, who had a perspective of international sports,
Right.
said we need to have a stadium. And several conversations, as they call it nowadays, were held, and they came up with various things. And what may be fascinating to the viewers that at the time, horse racing had just been moved from Knutsford Park to Caymanas Park.
To Caymanas Park.
And thought was given to building a running track out there. The National Heroes Park was looked at that location, and then they came up with the current location, which was a part of the JDF's property.
JDF, right.
So that's a story in itself. But the fact is that we accomplished that at a time when it was not known to be taking risks and to have the courage to do something which must make sense in the future.
Oh, absolutely.
And today, business and the academics will tell you have to do this study, that study, feasibility this, feasibility that, and so on. But sometimes, if we waited on that in the past, we'd never be where we are today.
Right.
Okay?
Well, Mr. Fennell has promised to really manage over the renovation of the Independence Park Limited and primarily a focus on the National Stadium. What are some of the sports in the initial stage that will be impacted positively?
Positively, athletics.
Right.
Positively, football.
Okay.
The cycling track will be removed.
So where will
That
go?
cycling track was built in 1962. It's a 500-meter track, which is no longer used anywhere.
Right.
You use either 250-meter or 330 meter. And part of the promise has been to build a separate velodrome for cycling
Okay.
on the same compound.
Okay.
In the same Independence Park
Independence
here.
Park.
So cycling will be impacted. When the stadium refurbishment is finished, attention has to be paid to the aquatic center,
Aquatics. Right.
because that's also the same age. But as you know, we can't do all those things at the same time. And furthermore, the aquatic center has been getting attention with other types of refurbishment at the moment. These are things that will be continuous, because if we accept sport not just for events, but the value of sport in societies, or the value of sport to societies, we will then embrace sport as a part of our overall plans for economic development, or plans for cultural and educational
And
development,
social.
and also for health.
For health purposes.
We don't have time here to talk about the adverse effect of lockdown with COVID on mental health and physical health, and our sport and physical recreation was missed.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay? So that's another story by itself.
Just to tell our viewers, we could have this conversation ongoing for another 3 hours, but we'll certainly bring back Mr. Fennell. Here's a fun fact about the National Stadium. The ground was broken in 1961 by U.S. Olympian Jesse Owens. And I'm sure that you were there and you'd have had a little story you want to share very quickly before we
Well,
go.
I remember that because Jesse Owens came here mainly because of Herb McKinley. The late Herb McKinley was well known was a hero to many of those guys. And when Herb said to him, Jesse, you have to come and do this, he accepted that invitation very, very quickly. The shovel of speed that turned the soil used to be in the Bank of Jamaica. And by the way, I don't know if it was 61, I think it was 60. But anyhow, look at the time it took to build in record time.
In record time, back in those days.
And they also had a strike and had to change contractors during the course of that. To me, it was a marvelous achievement. Marvelous achievement.
He has stories for days and years that we should find to tell. And I was able to pull off this really fabulous interview with Mr. Fennell. Sir, we want to thank you so very much for joining us.
But before we close off, Carole, do allow me to say this. I think it's important for the business community to understand sport more than just an event that's taking place. To understand sport has certain intrinsic values to society, to people, and in particular to the business community. If they don't embrace that now, they're going to lose some of the future that they deserve.
A great message to end this first conversation we have about the business of sport. Our focus was on venues, and we are primarily focusing on the National Stadium Complex, the Independence Park Limited. We have a number of other venues in Jamaica, the Catherine Hall Sports Complex, the Trelawney Multipurpose Facility, that we will talk about in our next series of interviews. This has been the Sports Exchange. My name is Carole Beckford. Thank you for joining us. Until next time.
Thank you.